stuff. I have looked into it, but I've never put any amount of time in it. I've never tried to do any of those.
I'm not feeling the acceptance for value thing. I think it's anything to do with the money coming that easy has got to be wrong, hasn't it? I was taught that as a young child, really. Anything that seems too good to be true normally is the saying, isn't it? So you're just writing things off all the time. Where's that going to get everyone? What? Writing pieces of paper and carrying pieces of paper in a bucket to go and get a loaf of bread.
They're all going to end up. You got to remember that they're all in fee simple, and they don't have right to that trust that they're trying to take in their current capacity. So that's them being a trustee that's trying to manipulate the law to take what's not theirs. So once the government catches up to creating the laws to stop that, they're all going to be going to jail. Like, look at Winston Trout. The guy's going to get fucking life in jail, man.
Keep saying that, like, but he's still fucking alive and kicking, isn't he? Well, seen him on the goldfish report about.
Yeah, he's got to wait. Yeah, but he's got to wait for trial now. He's got to wait for sentencing trial. He already had his trial. Now he's got to know
so many years, don't you? In between, like the trial being found guilty and then after he going to hand yourself in. I've never understood that.
Yeah, that's because they have to. There's a lot of things that they have to go over for that too, as well, right? You kind of see what I'm getting at, because it's not a set. Right, it's not like if you got caught with 5 grams of pot, it's already a set fine for $50 or whatever, right? Type of thing, right?
Yeah.
Right for your first offense. It's not like that when we're dealing with the trust of the donor, right? Because
I got what you're saying is there's no punishment book written for what he's done yet, so they're in the middle of writing the book of punishments to see what they're gonna fucking give him.
That's what I'm getting at. He's probably gonna get life in jail.
Yeah.
Right?
They're still writing the law in now. It's going to be hot off the press. The ink will still be damp when the fucking judges is fucking reading it.
Well, if anybody reads the statute, the Magna Carta, if anybody actually just reads the Magna Carta, I think it's chapter 24. And then there's also a whole bunch of other
hang on a minute. I lost my signal. Wait.
Oh.
Be back to plug in. My battery's low.
Maybe it could be me too. Is that getting any better? It's probably my internet again. Yeah, I'm not even getting any of you guys either.
I'm here. I had to turn my mic off.
Oh, there's Justin. I can hear Justin.
He's just going to plug it in on charge, I think.
Yeah, I think that's what he said. Yeah, it was starting to get really bad signal on my end. I wonder what's going to happen once this starts hitting the internet.
That's what I was thinking earlier. Once people can follow along and listen to this kind of stuff, they're going to kind of know, have a bit more basic knowledge and know where to look, especially when they use omnipotence.
Well, that's just it. I'm sure once there starts, because the other copies were a little bit crummy, I didn't want to post them on Facebook yet until we kind of had some better sound quality stuff.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is I've never been able to have the internet capabilities to do anything like this, because I've pretty much been stuck in the bush for almost 6 years now.
I've been most of this.
And that's why I keep trying to tell everybody, don't send in your IDs. Don't send in notices. Don't be doing all this except for value shit. Learn it. This is a game of poker. If you're gonna go and tilt your hand too early, it's a game of poker in equity, and they're gonna come after your equity, so you can't do anything. And it's gonna make it so you end up like the more people are desperate and so on and so forth, right? Like, because by us going and starting these things, they come after us, and then it puts us in a state of desperation because they've now got us in court and everything else. And we start grasping at things that we wouldn't normally grasp at, and I find that when people actually understand the fundamentals to the system and get reading the correct stuff, once they're ready, it's going to be a simple process, and all these people aren't going to have all these things that are happening to them now happen to them, because basically all people are doing is giving a notice of us of them breaking the law, and that's a bad thing to do.
Yeah, you're giving them the ammunition.
Yeah, so
yeah, I've noticed that in court. I got dragged into magistrate court a couple of weeks ago, but I'd been doing me reading up on how the case management files should be done and stuff like that, and how the parties should be acting with each other. And I just got onto the court and made them try and do everything above book, or see that they had everything above book, and he didn't. The court itself had failed in its own duties, and I caught them banging to rights. On the day that the trial was meant to happen, none of the witnesses turned up, and they sort of just conceded the case to a not guilty without even doing any of the trial on record. Like, just conceded the case straight away.
But you walk them into that by understanding the rules of what those people had to abide by.
Yeah, I just belted them around the court with their own stick, really.
and that's what I'm talking about. They're so ignorant because 99.999% of the people out there don't have a clue, and these people can just do whatever they want. So when we just come out of the blue, like if you don't sign and constantly sending them stuff and everything else, and you just pop out of the blue with the proper paperwork, they're going to ignore it and be ignorant. And that's exactly what we want.
Oh, he ignored his own paperwork. He was that ignorant.
but they do that on purpose, right? Because nobody ever does anything. Nobody knows the proper procedure, and it's a free for all, right? So when somebody like Cav was just saying, he understood a procedure where they tried to pull a fast one. Well, the only reason why they got caught was because Kev understood the procedure and basically caught on and kept walking them through their own swamp to the middle and then pulled the plug. Right? Like,
yeah.
So they're basically stuck there with nowhere to go. And that's what we need. And that's what we need to do. We need to make sure that we understand what is required and what the process is. So when they don't do it, we're right there to just get it justified.
Guide them. You've got to guide them. Basically,
you've
got to guide them.
I call it moving the court.
Yeah, you've got it. Well, yeah. Moving the court is the correct procedure. Like, is the correct terminology, I'd say. But like the staff that you have to work with aren't trained in the job that they need to be trained in. So basically, they just turn up and the motions go, because 99% of the people just turn up and think I'm fucked and I can't get out of this. So when you get someone who turns up and he knows what the spiel is and he knows what they should be doing, and you've already been on to them. I had paperwork from the prosecution side that had someone else's name in the defendant box. And I gave it to him in open court and asked him to read it and asked him, was that the paperwork that he'd sent to court? He said, yes. I said, is that the paperwork you sent me? He said, yes. I said, are you happy with that paperwork? He like shuffled through it quick. He said, yeah. Looked at me funny. I said, oh, are you happy that my name's not even the name on as the defendant in that then? Oh, it's just an error. I said, is there any other errors you'd like to admit to the court? he got his job tucked right in, mate. He couldn't get out of there quick enough. It was great. The judge just looked at them. His excuse that I know won't come was because he'd only just got back to work. And that's why no one turns up. And the judge was like, well, if they can work, they could come to court. He said, dismissed, found it in my favour straight away. But I think they done that so as it didn't go on the record, because I've got them in there. What happened was they breached loads of laws, and then when I stuck my hands up, said, well, they then said I was abusive and got me off site and tried to say I breached. And no one covered
realize
all
that
up.
In corporate court, there is actually no court of record till you're in trial.
Yeah, but this would have been coming out on the trial, wouldn't it, all that? But they didn't go for trial, they didn't turn up, so it missed the record. That was what I was trying to say. I know what they done, but sneaky little bastards.
That's right, that's why they dismissed it, because they couldn't put it on the record and put it through, because then you'd be able to file a writ of error.
Yeah.
Right?
It would have got smashed everywhere. It just took them a bigger hole. They shouldn't have went down it anyway, but it's got me to learn all the procedures of the baby courts anyway, so I'm interested in learning the procedures that you are trying to teach us, because that's how to play with the big courts.
Exactly,
and get eventually out of court.
That's what this is. It's just an assumption that they have, and because the judges and the laws dictate that if you don't stand in front of me and spit a quarter, I can't do what you're asking. Like, and you have to spit a quarter. You can't spit a dime. You can't spit a penny. You have to spit a quarter out onto the table. That's right, because they're bound by a strict set of rules. You see what I'm getting at? So
the framework,
yeah. So when we keep that into mind, that everybody's bound by their own law. So just because you're not bound by that law, it doesn't mean the judge isn't. Right? The judge is bound by law to deal with everybody in a certain way, in the same way for everybody. You kind of see what I'm getting at? So
if he doesn't, it's prejudice.
That's right. So when we actually understand these different things and how they come into play and why, right, and the capacities and jurisdiction in your contracts is right, and is where we find those answers, right? Finding the seat in law. And when we actually understand what the judge is using to find out whether he has jurisdiction or not over you, then there we go. That's exactly what we need. But because English law says, because once freedom was granted, now you have to learn it. You have to choose to learn it yourself, or go pay somebody to get the information, right?
Yeah.
That's where the problem is, because the judge can't tell you you did that wrong. But they are telling you that, right? You're vexatious or frivolous or a double split, right? These are actually words that actually mean something, right? And we take it to a total different level, that meaning, right? Instead of taking it as the hints that they should be, right? Like, you see what I'm getting at? Like,
yeah.
I've even had, like, when I challenged the live record of birth last year, the one judge even told me, you have to have, I need something where you actually are making a claim, right? Where I was trying to just trying to take the live record of birth in to get a determination of what it was and so on and so forth, right? Well, you can get law determined as long as it's not going to injure the public. Well, for them to determine the live record of birth would injure the public. See what I'm getting at? So he could not, because I was asking those questions as fee simple, because I did not have a deed of release and I was not asking for one. And I did not have my affidavit of 6.9 chapter 18, right? So I was not moving the court to the proper jurisdiction. So I was standing there as fee simple in front of him, and he couldn't do that.
Yeah, but that's
right, because remember, as me being fee simple, I have no authority to that, even to determine the live record of birth because I'm not the donor. I'm not even the one named on the document.
Have you ever tried just turning up and standing there and not doing as you're told?
Well, he tried to play like that Freeman crap on me and everything else, and I basically, because I already understood the land tenures and jurisdictions and everything else. I just didn't have everything put together for the reversion. And in court, I never tilt my hand. Never have I ever started going into an area of law that I didn't fully understand. So, because I didn't fully understand this, I did not tilt my hand to the court to show them that I was even looking at it. So I basically just used the knowledge that I knew, right? That jurisdiction is not a name, right? Because he tried to say, oh, you're trying to be like a free man where law doesn't apply and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, law is an agreement. And obviously there's an agreement in place. And obviously I'm not being lawless because I'm standing here trying to discuss this agreement with you that you're trying to ignore. Right?
I didn't get that far in.
Right? And then I also basically told him jurisdiction is based on your domicile. And for a citizen, it's based on a residence. See what I'm getting at? Right. So yeah. I was telling him I understood these things, right? And that because he wasn't willing to deal with everything, like I could have went in with a writ of error and everything else, but I found a faster and better way to deal with than trying to go through, because I did this in the Trustees Act, right? To challenge the live record of birth, which is completely freaking wrong, right? But I was still learning back then, and I'm still learning today, right? Because we got to fully go through it to actually get the gist of it, and you got to complete it to understand it. So, right. So basically, he was trying to go off and trying to get you talking about things other than this, right? It was to the point where there was, I think, 8 bailiffs and everything else that came in. And as soon as they came, and this has never happened to me before. Like all the bailiffs, that's always happened. It's matter of fact, in provincial court, if I'm going to be on the docket, the place is full of them.
Nice. Is the door open and all that as if they're going to take you down if you put a foot wrong?
Oh, I've been bounced out of the courtroom. Like a drunk at a bar where 4 guys come and grab you and take you up off your feet and open the doors with your head and throw you out onto the parking lot. that for 3 years, that was almost a daily occurrence.
Yeah, man.
And now that I'm at this extent, the judges won't. Matter of fact, like at my last hearing, the judge told all the bailiffs to put their backs against the back wall and not to move.
So you get in there.
And matter of fact, the judge didn't even swing the gavel to close that case when I challenged the live record of birth.
Jesus.
I had him read. His head was down. He had his head on his forehead and right and down on the elbow of his table and everything else all red. He didn't know what to say or nothing. Jesus. Because I had my revocation and everything else of all the things required, and because I did all this stuff in 2012 and it was actually done correctly. I even claimed my lands and everything properly in 2012, and they came and went and totally brutalized me, right? And I lost everything because they just kept coming after me in every which shape or form. So basically. They've charged me, and since I did that, they really came after me in equity, and I've had over 30 charges since then, and every single one at trial, the Crown is standing outside the courtroom, waiting for me to tell me that they're dismissing the charges, and all I have to do is just walk in and let the judge tell me that the charges are dismissed and it's done.
Decent.
After they keep throwing me out like a drunk at a bar and everything else, they will never let me speak to the trial judge. Because if you notice, he's actually the only judge. Oh, the other ones are magistrates.
Yeah, or even what's called a recorder we have, which is just a solicitor.
Pretty much,
I found out. Just a solicitor that goes from court to court. I heard. Well, I had a recorder, and it was a good point in the case. It was much to do about nothing. It was a pre-trial hearing, And I thought, I'll just try this. When she said my name, I give my name all polite and that. But when they give the order to sit down, I didn't want to be ordered around like a child. So I just said, no, I'm quite fine. I'll use the legs I've stood on. No, sit down. No, it's fine. I'm fine. Thanks for your polite invitation, but I'm quite fine on the legs God gave me. Thank you very much. If you do not sit down, we will mark you in your absence and leave. And I said, oh no, thanks for your offer. I'm quite fine standing. Thanks very much. Just all polite and that. I've got this on a transcript as well. I paid for it. And they just got up and left. And ushered me out the court. So I went straight downstairs to the CPS to make a complaint to say this isn't justice. It says nowhere in that book, because she'd come in and she was already sat, and the etiquette of the court, is only to stand and rise when they're coming in and out, and she was already sat on the bench. So I didn't have to stand and rise and that. I was already stood and I was quite happy standing. So what I couldn't understand was why she was trying to order me around like I'm some little child, so I've got to receive me justice. I don't think you're allowed.
That's something we should actually discuss really quick here. Now that we understand what jurisdictions are and how they achieve jurisdictions, we know that even by showing up at court is not granting jurisdiction. Showing up at court is just to discuss it. Standing up when they walk in is just showing respect that they're the ones that are going to be determining it. So yeah. I would say, right? So now that we know what jurisdiction really is, all these things don't matter, right? Like, because my last name is Brewis. So in court, all my life, right, I'm like the very first one up, right? Because I'm my name, right? Because they're going in alphabetical order. Well, now I'm no longer right? And so I could always be in and out of court within 10, 15 minutes, right? Now, lots of times they make me wait. And a lot of times I was even getting to the point, right, where I would stand up and say, excuse me, but you guys are all inferior to me and you're going to make me wait to the end? Well, I'm in a superior capacity than the attorneys here, so I should be the first one to deal with my matter, right? And all that does is it just gets everything going in the wrong direction.
No shit.
Right? You kind of see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
Now, when I stopped doing that, and I let them just play their frickin' role, right? And then I get up and ignore all that shit, because you got to remember, by you agitating yourself through all that stuff, you're agitating yourself for when you're coming up to discuss this matter.
No,
you just added
off the game.
Right? It's knocking you off your game. This is what they want you. This is what they want to do to you. They want to get you shaky in your voice, sweaty palms, right? Afraid of their shit, right? Don't even walk into their courtroom. Go sit outside the courtroom. Wait for them to call your name. Don't even be a part of it. Just sit outside the courtroom, and they'll call your name when you're ready. Walk right in. Do what you got to do. Stick only to the determining factors and what the agreement says the determining factors are, what the law says they are. Right? So if you're going in there to move the court, that's all you're going in there to do. You don't care what they look like, what they're doing, or anything else. You're just going to keep marking it down. And once they get to a certain point, and they step over a certain line, that's when you just basically state, well, I'm sorry, you just given me enough evidence to now put in a motion to have a writ of error and to move this to a different jurisdiction. You've now, by your actions, have your own authority to deal with this matter. You see what I'm getting at? And now we're not angry. We're not anything. We haven't stirred the pot, right? So because we haven't pissed them off because we didn't stand when we were supposed to stand. Right? And you didn't call my name yet, and right, and just fucking making my life miserable.
Well, right? I was polite when I done it. I was just basically didn't want to be ordered around like some little idiot.
Okay, but but when we're looking at who they are and what powers they have, is that going to make them feel all weird or anything behind the bench? Or is it going to make them feel weird that they know that you're just going to come popping in through that door with a big smile on your face, and they're not going to have any fucking idea what they're going to hand you, and whatever it's going to be, it's going to be powerful. You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
If they want to make you wait to the end of the very end, that's fine. Let that judge sit there and simmer over what you're going to hand into for the next hour and a half.
Plus, if it runs out of court as well, you'll have to sit and stew all night on it.
Exactly, right? You see what I'm getting at? So
the ball's in his court,
let's flip. Let's spin the table around. Switch the onus, right? We hold all the cards. We have to stop firing ourselves up and doing all these things. They're bound by the law. By you standing there screaming ain't going to make it change. Right? What's going to make it change is you writing that down, getting the proper information written down. So you got to be proper in your mind, right? You got to be able to write quickly, right? Write legibly so you can read it again after and understand it, because you don't want to be flustered, right? Because if you're flustered, you're going to be forgetting more stuff, right? So then you're not going to. So if we get rid of all that stuff, and all we have to deal with just making sure that when the judge breaks the rule, we write it down.
Have you cross-examined?
No, they won't let me into trials.
I've cross-examined on a trial. I got lucky, and they wouldn't let me cross-examine the bailiff, but they let me cross-examine the bailiff's locksmith in a trial, like where I'd only escorted the bailiff gently down the path. and he called it assault by beating. I just gently moved him with folded arms, like, and told him, wait over there until I'm finished, basically.
Well, that's where they lose all power, right? Because they get people to go and protest and do all these things that gets people fired up, right? It's the things that get people fired up that gives them the authority to come in. Restrain. Yeah. You see what I'm getting at? Because they have a job to protect the public, right? So they just assume that authority. So whatever. And being in the natural, if you're in your donor capacity in actual natural law, you would agree with that. So you'd be making sure that you don't do anything to give them that authority. You see what I'm getting at? So
as soon as the conflict starts, that's where they step in. That's where the conflict comes from. Their authority comes from. As soon as there's an argument with no cure, boom, they're in there. They're the judge in the matter. They're the referee.
That's right. So all we have to do is write it down, let him keep spilling his beans, right, and keep writing all the stuff down. And then once he's done, you just go over them. Well, I'm sorry, you're wrong about this because of this, and you're wrong about this because of that, and because you did this. This statute says that I have a writ of error, and because I got this writ of error, and I'm stating this, and you're ignoring it, that I have the right to move you to this jurisdiction. What do you have to say now? And if he keeps blabbering on and say, that's fine, you can keep breaking the law all you want. You can make your judgment. I'm going to go and file my appeal.
I think I've got a writ of error me in my case. Because what I done was I had a private hearing, and asked them, could I bring the law into the court, right? And I took some law in with me, some preset cases on trespassing and on being able to tell a bailiff to get off the land, like, and be well within your rights, and. Basically, he told me that the bailiff could never be a trespasser, and that's why he found me guilty. But I'd already brought to him proper law, Queen's Bench, and also another case that had said, no, you can. And if anyone arrests me afterwards, then they be committing an offence. And that's what the law said. But I got fucked in court and I couldn't understand why. But obviously, because I was standing as not the donor and I couldn't have law.
That's right.
equity did not come to my aid; it come to the aid of the court.
Well, equity will never come to your aid unless you're standing as the donor.
Right, and that's why I was in the wrong capacity. I was away at sea, weren't I, with the fairies, like a soft
exactly. So that's why, in your capacity, the bailiff can never.
Do you know? Even though I was forceful with the judge at times and stuck up for myself in every way I could, and I fought this battle right to the end, and it was fucking a nasty one. It took a lot out of me stress-wise, and he could see that as well. And he said to me at the end of it, after, even though he'd found me guilty, like, he said to me, "Do you know what, lad?" He said, "You've done a better job than some of the paid people that come through my court." That's what, and he said, honestly, it's a commendment to yourself for what you've achieved in front of this court and all this stuff. Like, so I went far off. He knew I nearly had him. Yeah,
I've had the same thing. Over matters where I'm having to deal with the same judge for a long period of times. Yes, same thing. He's like, "I'm gonna miss you. It's been an interesting duel with you," and right, that kind of thing. And so,
yeah, that. He's just used to walking in and just being bosh, and just people just saying nothing. That's why, and just it gets fucking dealt with by the two attorneys, doesn't it? Before you've even fucking walked in.
But yet, to be honest, with that judge that I was talking about, the only reason why I was able to get to that point was because he was able to blow off all those things of me not standing up, right? And he just was able to deal with just the law, right? Because that was at the time where I wouldn't stand up, right? And I'd even stand up and say, "Well, hey, I'm Bruce. I'm supposed to be like the first one called. Like, look at that. I'm even the first one on the list, right? And why am I not being called?" Like, and then I'd even sit in the courtroom because I understood the assumptions and stuff. When other people were going up and doing and having things, I'd even be loud in the courtroom so even they would hear it. It's like, that'd be one hell of an assumption, right? And he'd just blow all that shit off, right? So it really depends on how forgiving the judge is going to be, right? So if we actually eliminate all those things, we'll find that every judge is probably going to be somewhat forgiving because they have to do what the law states. As long as we tell them that as long as we show it to them and we're in the proper capacity, they'll have to do it. So we don't have to worry about doing all those things because I'm getting at, we have more power by going in there calmly and handing them powerful stuff.
Yeah, well, as I seen, I only made phone calls and didn't even put paperwork in because I realised at a certain point in the case, in the case law, it says all the parties should have been identified and you can move the court through a phone call. So once I worked that out and read that little piece of the criminal procedure rules out to the court, the person on the phone, they didn't have no. She ran off to a legal team, and then the legal team must have set her straight. And I've just said, I can move the court with a phone call. It says here in the rules, and I'm phoning you up now and telling you what to do. And it's as simple as that. If you don't want to take my notes now, then you're not completing your duties as the officer of the court. And I'm quite sure that the court will frown upon that, especially when you're taking money for your performance.
I think I'm not sure what they mean by that, but just from what you said, I believe what they mean by that is that if you brought something up to the court that could be proved by somebody else that wasn't in the court, you have the right to make a phone call to have them have a phone, right? Because even at your bail hearings and all these other things, you can do it over the phone through video court and everything else now. So that's why evidence can be given by a third party in a court by you picking up a phone and calling them and putting them on speakerphone and getting them to state their name and stating their thing, right?
Yeah, so that's why it's in the procedure.
I'm pretty sure that's why it's in the procedure for in that way. So if they try to give you a joker card, you can still justify it right there on the spot.
Well,
right?
I asked for something to be read out to me from the file, and the person who was meant to be in charge of it told me they didn't have the file in their possession and didn't know the whereabouts of it. And I said, well, isn't that a very important document, and shouldn't you be taking a little bit more care of that? and I'd like to know the whereabouts of it, just in case someone's doing something that they shouldn't with it. And she let slip that they were going to go and phone what's known as the probation over here. And they were actually the prosecuting team. So I just said, well, you're going to go and ask the prosecution side where the case manager and file is on the case for the court. I said, I thought you were meant to be impartial. That doesn't sound very impartial if the case management file's in the possession of the prosecution to me.
That depends on how your court rules are written.
You know, that it's written in that they're meant to be impartial, and you know.
No, I don't mean in the way for the impartial. I mean in the administration of law is in your like, let's say that was the Queen's Bench you were in. If you were looking in the Queen's Bench Act in the rules, it'll state how that
yeah, I was looking in the criminal procedure.
How the case conference and all that stuff and all those things, who's to write them and to set it up, right? Because I believe that's just setting up that's setting up all the information package, right? So the crown would be the one that actually would set that up, because it's all the crown corporations that can give you like the like your pre-trial report and all that other stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because everything that you do as fee simple is done by permits and by deed pools. So they're basically going and getting the contracts to prove that you've signed these and that you've agreed to them and that you're bound by them and that you're stopped from disputing them because you've signed them. See what I'm getting at? This works both ways, right? So that's where that comes in, because everything that we do, we have to get the authority from the FOFIEs, right? The FOFIORs. So
right.
The government, right? So they give they're the ones that pass the license and regulate everything and document all the contracts, right? So even your pre-sentence report, even your pre-sentencing report for finding out how it would affect you for sentencing if you got jail and so on and so forth, right? Even all that stuff is all done by them, because they're the only ones that have those records. So I think when we start actually realizing who the government is and what their job is and what the judges' jobs are and their capacity in the court that they're acting in, is going to really help understand why the administration of law is written the way it is. Right? We won't be assuming that they're not being impartial and everything else, because it would be hard for them
to be impartial.
Yeah, in certain ways, right? Because let's face it, the government is the one that gave you the permission to do it, and you went and said, right? Because you asked we basically go and ask the government permission to do it, and they're like, yeah, okay, here you go. When we don't even have to ask. The problem is that we started to ask, and as soon as you ask just once and sign that very first document, you're now forced, and now you've forced yourself into the system, and now you have to go to a judge to get it removed, because the government doesn't have the authority to even remove it.
Right. So, is that why did you think it's been the positions sort of being merged over the last few years in England? The Chancellor of the Exchequer is sort of the Justice as well.
I'm not
They're
sure.
sort of in the same office now.
Probably. They're just combining the jurisdictions because there's nobody in common law anymore. Give me 1 second. And I'm back.
Shout. How are you feeling, Justin? Are you getting a feel? Still here? No, might be here.
I thought Justin was still here.
Say that again.
Yeah, how are you feeling?
I've just been listening to this part because I've not looked into administration law too much, and whenever I've been in the courts, like you said, the attorneys just represented me, and I've just been shoved through the system. You know what I mean? I've never learnt it myself, and the one time I represented myself, they threw me in for 2 months.
Well, we're gonna have to change that.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, man. Definitely.
Okay, so it's I guess they held you for till trial or something, then, eh?
No. Well, basically, I had a suspended sentence, and then they raided my house, caught a bit of drugs, and activated the suspended sentence, and threw on 7 days for what they found.
One thing
that I do have to point out is if you ever get picked up by the police and you haven't gotten your deed of release already, do not give any of this paperwork to the police. Do not talk to the police about anything whatsoever. Don't claim any of these remedies or anything else. Don't tell them that they don't have jurisdiction over you or anything like that. And when you go in front of the judge, the only thing the judge can deal with is whether you're going to show up for court and talk about this assumed agreement, or if you're going to be an injury to the public. So as long as you can prove that you're going to show up to talk about this agreement, and that you're not going to be an injury to the public in any way, they can't hold you. And if you bring up a jurisdiction challenge in a bail hearing, you're challenging and saying that you're not going to show up for court and talk about this agreement, because that's not the very first hearing that you actually walk into after your bail hearing is where you start dealing with the jurisdiction and giving motions and things like that. If you are in jail, if you fail your bail hearing, you are going to be staying in jail. When you're in jail, you are going to have no computer. You're going to only have limited phone access. You do not get access to the library. You don't have access to your papers, your computer, or any of your information. It's very important. Yeah, right? So you can't get to the Queen's bench to make a claim, right? And you can't, you see what I'm getting at, and to make an injunction. Because you can even go make a claim and have an injunction to have them stopped. But you have to be able to be out on the street, or at least unless you're that intelligent that you have a photographic memory to be able to do all the things that are required now that you're picked up and in jail. And even for myself, that's hard. Like, because they picked me up, they held me for like 27 hours before putting me in front of a judge. And they actually thought that I was actually going to challenge jurisdiction and everything else. Because when they picked me up, they picked me up at 10 o'clock in the morning, but they didn't put me in front of 1 o'clock the next, 1 or 2 o'clock the next day. When there was already judges, video court, phone court, and everything else at the disposal. Never before have they ever done this. They would not let me actually get to a magistrate or anything else. They took me directly to the penitentiary, basically what is considered the penitentiary out in this area. It's they put me in with all the Supermax guys right directly onto a dorm. They actually thought I was going to be staying there because they thought that I was going to be challenging jurisdiction and doing all these other things that all the other people do. So
yeah, that's bad.
It's very important to make sure that you understand what the judges can do and when they can do it. Because if you bring in a process that they can't do at that time, you're neglecting to deal with the subject matter that's at hand.
I suppose it's important to point out now as well, though, the purpose of all of this is so that we can learn enough and have our documents ready. So that's what we're doing it for, aren't we? To start writing our claims out, writing our releases out, so that we do have everything ready.
Exactly.
The sooner the better.
That's right, because if you have your claim and everything ready, because you don't have to sign the claim, you don't have to be the one that submits the claim. So if you have all this ready, and let's say you send your paperwork in, and they come and arrest you for a malicious thing, and let's say they don't put you in front of a judge. Well, you can get your friend to go drop this off into the Queen's Bench and have an injunction and have you a hearing within 2 days, even the next day, because they can file the motion for you and have an injunction hearing already set up for you. So now they have to bring so see what I'm getting at? So now you're moving the court from equity into common law, where now your Queen's Bench court is the only one that can restrict the lower courts. So that's the main thing that people have to realize, is that as long as we start playing this like a game of poker and stop tilting our hand, and as soon as we're ready to play, that's when we sit down. Right? When we notice that the cards are going to start, the deck's looking good now. Right? So now's the time to sit down. Right? And when the deck is looking good is when you have the understanding of what the deck is and how those cards are coming out across the table. And that's understanding law and jurisdiction and what can be done. Right? Like, you can't ask for an extra card in Texas Hold'em. Right? And you can't ask for an extra card in court. It just doesn't happen. So you're only getting the tools that each area of that administrational law is allowing you to use. Right? Like, you can't go in and ask for, you can't put in a motion for a summary judgment, and then when you go in there start talking about a default judgment. You kind of see what I'm getting at? That hearing's for a summary judgment. So you got to deal with that hearing. Right, the subject matter of that hearing, and what the purpose of it is for. So when we start doing that, and we start understanding what the contract is, it all falls apart really fast.
Yeah, the wheels are gonna turn, and it's just you've got to go with the wheels as they're turning, and then pop up at the right time and lay your paperwork on it.
Exactly. Otherwise, they're just going to come after us and make our life miserable, right? If we have all our paperwork done, when we send in our notices to the government and to the people that are holding our lands, they only have 20 to 30 days to grant it, and make the court case to grant it to you. Otherwise, it's an injury, and you're making the claim. So, by having everything prepared and done properly, you're only giving 20 to 30 days of chance where these things could occur. where when we send in our ID and everything else, things, well, now they have years to come after us, right? Because you got to remember, personal. Right now you're in remainder, but you still haven't removed your subject matter jurisdiction, which is the contract. Half a jurisdiction over you. You kind of see what I'm getting at? You're free, but you're not free. Right? So you have rights, but you don't have rights. So you kind of see what I'm getting at? So once we understand the positions and that by doing it in one quick swoop, like the doctrine of estates and reversion states, right? Because they state it in a way that we're supposed to be doing it all in one shot.
Yeah.
Right? Not going after a deed of release and then 10 years later going after the land trust. Matter of fact, they say if you do that, once you start, if you get into remainder, if you choose to stay in remainder after so long, you've agreed to grant that estate to the people, right? And then you'll have a lot harder time getting it back. You kind of see what I'm getting at, because now you're outside the statute of limitations, but then they can't supersede your natural rights, right? Because you got to remember, a lot of these things were written before freedom and the absolute rights of the individual that Blackstone wrote, because freedom came in 1888 through the new law of equity, because equity is the use and trust, and there's always been use and trust. So you can always say that there's always been equity, law and equity in English law, but the corporate equity was created in 1600s with the trading companies, right? And that's where everybody was, right? And that's where this new municipal jurisdiction comes in, and we're that new tier, right? Because before we only had the two. It was like you granted to the monarchy and you swore allegiance, and that was it. And then you went and took lands, right? Right? Then you had lands directly in the king. So you're only 2 degrees away, right? As soon as they made the corporation, that made you a third-party interloper, and now you have to do this deed of release before they'll even talk to you about it. You kind of see what I'm getting at? So by joining municipal law, it means that you've given away your natural rights and taken on equitable rights and duties in exchange. Right? So once the municipal law and the corporate person has been removed, you're now standing in your capacity of your natural rights. Right? And then you can continue on from there and take your lands back.
Yeah.
See, so it's important that the way the law writes it is, it would be easier to do it all in one shot because you're dealing with the true subject matter throughout the entire thing, right? The reason why your deed of release, the reason why you're releasing your corporate rights and duties is because you want your light. You're not going to work. You're not going to be acting as somebody else. You want to be acting in your own right, with your own right. You know what I mean? With true ownership of your lands, right, and your natural rights. This is not about just stopping being the corporate person. This is getting back your true capacity in law, right? Well, it is for me. So other people, it might be different. And that's why it's a choice on whether you want to do one level at a time, you want to do it all at once, right? And you can even choose not to do the waste, right? Like you'll notice that the claim, you have to choose everything you want in it. If you don't want that, you don't put it in there. Right, everything is a choice, and that's what this new corporate municipal equity thing, and that's why, in my opinion, it's a temporary system, because we're granted freedom, right? And until we actually take it, your slave master has to take care of you. That is a law of nature, right? If you were a slave and you got and they granted your freedom and you just didn't leave, they still had to take care of you, and that's all that we've done. Right? And then we added on to that. Not only did we leave, we went and asked them to do some duties and have to pay for it. Right? Right? So now he can't smack you and everything else, but now you're paying him to do his work that before he was telling you to do. And he could smack you to do it. Now you want to pay him to do that. Okay, so, and also to be under his protection now still too. So if you're begging that person that was beating you to do that stuff before, now you're begging them for protection and paying them to do that work, to have their protection. Well, I'm sorry, but for me, that's not somebody who I would choose to be my protector, especially my protector of my natural rights. Right? And Blackstone even goes into that and all the other guys about now that municipal law is in place, they're the guardians of our natural rights. And that also goes with the Magna Carta, right? Chapter 4. All those in fee simple are the guardians to the donors, right? English law just made the assumption now in municipal law that the Queen is the donor. Well, that's just because we're all going to sea as corporate people, so we can't be the donors. So we're dead and we're not alive because in law, you can only swear allegiance to one person at one time. So you can't have two allegiances with two different kings with two different laws. Right? That's all it's saying in law. It's all man's law is fiction. So to say that it's fiction in court is kind of moot because any agreement any two men make together is a fiction. I can agree, you and me can agree that the ground is purple, but yet it's actually green. But you and me can agree to change that to purple, and it'll be purple between you and me, but everybody else will be green. See what I'm getting at? So it's all fiction. It's all based on our agreements and the interaction between men. Because when we actually allow an agreement to be broken out of ignorance, then there's never going to be any agreements that actually can hold weight, because everybody's, when they want out of it, they're just going to say, well, I didn't know that. Well, it's not up to me to educate you on 40 years of life every time I get in an agreement with somebody. Like, you have to know some things, and if you don't know them, it's up to you to ask me before you agree. Because it's not up to me to teach you. Freedom, man. It was up to you to learn how to brush your teeth and wipe your own ass. I'm not going to do it for you. So when we get in an agreement that I'm going to install a toilet, it's not that I'm going to install a toilet and I'm going to be there every day to wipe your ass and flush the toilet for you. You kind of see what I'm getting at? So just because I installed a toilet doesn't mean you can assume that I'm going to be there to wipe your ass and flush the toilet for you. All right? All we agreed that I'm going to put it in the toilet for you. So it can kind of get really dicey with the assumptions that people make and things like that, where because people think that just because the government can actually make a one-sided agreement, well, that's because we all agreed to allow the government to do that. So any other individual does not have that right to say, Justin, you owe me $500 because I said so, because you asked me this question, and now you think that I owe you the answer to the question, so for me to give you the answer to that question, you got to pay me $500, right? That's kind of where a lot of these equitable groups are going, and that's not the way it is. It's the only reason why the government can do that is because the government said, yeah, we all gave them the approval to do that. So I think
that answers it there. Oh, is he gone? Is he?
Yeah, I think he's gone. But yeah, it's been like 3 hours.
I know.
I'm sure you're probably getting pretty tired.
I'm all right, but I'm good to leave it there with you, Al. You got enough. I'll go through that, take out what we can. But yeah, like you just said there, all of those movements, they're all in agreement to it all. Whether they know about it or not's irrelevant. They're all in agreement to it. Then to go and argue against that, like you say, it's doesn't make sense. It's vexatious, as the real terminology goes, and it just don't make sense, is it? You're in agreement to it. That's the end of it.
Problem is nobody's taking the time to look at the agreement. They want to think it's something else when it's a total different beast. And when people actually understand what the beast is, it's all going to make sense. Because it all falls right into place. It by following the law, it all just falls right into place with the assumptions and how it was done and everything. And it's all I hate to say it, but it's actually legitimate. And if it wasn't for the people that we chose to be in Parliament and make
the
these equitable laws. I honestly think this system, not in its current form where you give a land tenure and you're made into a corporate person and stuff, but it could be set up in a different way where people could actually get taught the truth and they could have the choice to create something different. And there's more than enough room for many different societies and types of beliefs and different societies within these massive territories of land that are actually assumed ownership of, right? So a lot of these stuff, they actually have the right to do those things and not be hassled or just to be left alone to see how well they can do and what they can create, right? And that's how we're going to learn, by people going out and doing these things. And let's face it, we're going to have to make mistakes, right? It's the only way we learn is by making mistakes, right? So it's going to be a long path, and the more people that actually look at it will actually change. Well, I think they'll join in, but the biggest thing is that once more people understand, there'll be room for acceptance of a new system. Because right now, nobody's in acceptance of this new system because everybody believes that they're the true owner and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Well, that's really not the case here.
You have to claim that first.
Yeah. So when we actually get the true picture of what this really is, I think people will actually be more acceptable to having. Yeah.
I would say, I was giving the always very interested in acquired. It's already working perfectly well with an equity program in America.
Oh, we lost you.
Yeah, Kenneth Scott is already set up an equitable solution. So you can live in the private. You still there?
Yeah, but that's what I don't understand about that. How can you be in the private when there is no private in equity? You can't be in the private in equity. Equity.
It's not you. It's a bit hard for me to explain to it. You'd have to speak to Ken. He set up a whole system of using the equity. That's all I can say, and it works.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying. It only works because legislation hasn't caught up with him.
Yeah, he's on about the same type of system as kindness credits, I believe.
Absolutely incorrect. Absolutely incorrect. I'll have to get you to talk to Ken.
Oh, I'd love to talk to Ken because
they've got the full. They're the leading people, and they're never going to go to jail for this.
Well, not currently, but if they make a law for tomorrow,
not ever.
Well, then let me ask.
So tight. I mean, they've set up an ecclesiastical society. They've got their own banking system.
Okay, hold on a second there. Let's talk about that though. Ecclesiastical society is given its authority through the monarchy, and
they use the terms the only way out is in. Now you may think that's odd, but Ken's that there's no actual way to actually live by just claiming the estate. And in fact, all the emergency war powers and everything, in fact, won't let you claim the estate.
But that's what I'm trying to explain. That's what I was trying to explain. That religion and ecclesiastical law only has a use. How can the monarchy give something away that she doesn't have?
Yeah, but she doesn't have it, does she? Not hers.
So whose is it? It's not the church's.
Well,
the church. Yeah, so the monarchy's claimed it too, but it's not hers either.
the crown has claimed everything, haven't they? As you know, by all the papal bulls and all the rubbish.
Well, it's
And
actually
that's not going to go away, and they're not going to let you get away with that.
you don't have a choice.
Well,
That's what I'm trying to show you right now.
You and I know, William, that that's not quite kind of correct, is it? Because they've got all the people that don't know about this behind them.
But that's what I'm trying. That's what I'm trying to explain. These people are all bound by the laws of equity, and the common law created those laws of equity for the ecclesiastical and the land trust companies. So, if the donor is superior to all of that, and all the law states that when the donor comes back and wants it, they have to give it. Then how is it that somebody that's in a use can not only disinherit, but can claim true ownership when they don't have the capacity? So everything that you're saying about the Ken gentleman, hold on 1 second, about that Ken gentleman is none of these people are acting in their true capacity. They're acting through another capacity. How is he
corrected his status? Ken's corrected his status, and he's acting in true capacity.
And what status is that?
Good question.
He's got an Illodium title.
Illodium title to what?
Sorry?
Illodium title to what?
To his estate.
What's his estate?
The fee simple absolute.
But what is the estate? Is it his name? Is it a bank account? What did he claim as his estate?
Can't tell you that. You'll have to ask him yourself. That's why I said you'll have to have a meeting with him.
See, that's what I keep. That's the determining factor about all this stuff. Is sure if you want to believe that your estate is your name.
No,
fine.
The estate isn't the name.
Right. So
the estate isn't the name at all. The estate is just the contract, and the acceptance is the name.
Okay, because
but you can't claim the corporate person while the emergency banking is in full swing. All the emergency war powers that are enacted. That's the way I see it. That's why everybody's having problems, because they're trying to claim something which is being held up for military purposes.
Okay, but once again, you're already talking about law in pretty much the 1900s.
Sorry?
You're talking about law in the 1900s.
No, because I mean the franchises have been a bankrupt franchise for a long time prior to the 1900s.
Okay, but that's what I'm trying to explain. How does a corporation dissolve? By losing all its assets and shareholders leave it. So in order for them to make a new system in the land trust companies for the government, the trading companies had to go belly up. See what I'm getting at? So this is just another corporation that you're talking about that got its authority from our land tenure. See what I'm getting at? There's no equitable law out there that supersedes the common law. So
because the title's split. You've got your common law and you've got your equitable title. You still can claim the common law as well as the equity.
But only as donor. So if you don't have
when you split the title and you appoint somebody else as the trustee to the equitable title to settle all debts and liabilities.
See, that's what I'm getting at. That's you've assumed now that by you being the A, granting to be the monarchy, right? So you're talking about that agreement, right? the agreement between the monarchy and the land trust companies, which are the governments. You have to look at that agreement between them. You can't assume that the agreement between you as donor and the monarchy is the same between the monarchy and the government. That's a total different agreement. We did not create this agreement between the monarchy and the government. The monarchy did. We didn't create anything. Right? Because we elect we as fee simple elect somebody that accepts taking on another contract which is performing a strict function of government to make those laws. So we don't even make the laws. You see what I'm getting at? So as a citizen, you don't have the capacity in law to make law. You don't have the capacity in law to own anything, and you don't have the capacity in law to disinherit yourself. You don't have the capacity in law to set off against that trust. You don't have the capacity in law to even withdraw from that trust. You can't do anything with that trust. Matter of fact, you don't even have the authority to discuss the trust. So if you don't have any of those things, how can you, as that capacity, create what Ken there is trying to suggest? Unless he created it inside a new corporate jurisdiction, inside the equity that one of these people have already created. And that's why he chose ecclesiastical, and that's why that's why all these people keep choosing religion, because religion is the only one where you can actually go and create your own jurisdiction inside it. So you're still not even acting in your own capacity. And I would like you to look at Blackstone. I'll post it in a little bit. That by you choosing a religion, you're gone to sea. So you barred yourself from the trust. That's in the Bill of Rights 1688 and many other things. So that's why I keep explaining to people that every time that they try to grasp at this equity or anything in it, and equity is also ecclesiastical, military, all of them, they're all equitable jurisdictions. They're created by a government, right? So they only have force and effect over the ones that consent to it, the ones that are its citizens. If you're not its citizen, they don't apply to you, right? And this is also bringing us back to the acceptance of the land tenure, which is livery by cession, which is being the corporate person working for the government and being seized by the lands. So this Ken guy, sure, he can have a lodium title in Ken Doss' name as an ecclesiastic, so he's still in fee simple. He does not have a lodium title. His corporation has it. And it's still a defeasible title. It's just an allodium title. It's not an indefeasible title. So if you got the actual land titles thing for it, we did a land title search, it'll guaranteed say defeasible title on that title. That means that he is not sui juris.
I'll have to stop you there. You'll have to speak to Ken. I'll put him on. I'll connect you up and you can talk to him. I'm no expert on this.
Yeah, no, it would be great. Because I totally understand people with the equity thing and thinking that they can actually control it, because...
No, you don't, because you've not seen the system. That's all.
When I was...
This system is not seen by anybody.
Yeah, but that's not... I'm not... But what I'm getting at is the...
It's got 900 members, and a lot of them have already got through most of the stages, and it's all gone through fine.
Yeah, just like Ed Bellinger and everything else. I know. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Can I get a word in? Ken is part of the start of all this law movement, 30 years ago. He's been studying it for a long time now. So you've got to respect that knowledge, just like I respect your knowledge. And what I'm trying to say to you is set something up that's working. So I can't say to you that
working and freedom are two different things. That's what I'm trying to point out.
You're not going to get true freedom in this system. You're not going to get true freedom either, because you're just not the way that it's going.
I think it's just sensible
Well, that's
to
the reason
understand that
why.
these are two different things. Estates and reversion is one thing, and dealing with the trusts and like the kindness credits, where
No,
like you were talking about with
no
the splitting.
comparison. There's no comparison between Ken's system and kindness credits.
Well, whichever way, the fact that I was trying to make was that you're still in equity. You're still in the equity system. So that's the different. They're two different things. The Ken's way is obviously finding a way to
The way that
live
you're doing it,
within.
you're not in the equity system because you split the title. You're not anything to do with that. That's in trust.
You didn't split the title. That's the catch.
Ken split the title.
Ken can't split the
It was
title.
already
Yes, he
split.
can.
It wasn't Ken that split it.
That's what I'm trying to. That's what I'm getting at. Is you as donor gives it to the monarchy. The monarchy splits the title in two. All the ecclesiastical, military, fee simple, all the jurisdictions that are created from the monarchy only get the use. That ownership retains in her hands until the donor, the one named on the live record of birth, terminates it.
And now, obviously, what Andrew's saying is that Ken is now found in a way to manage the left-hand side of that title, if you will, and the right-hand side is, how we all live in fee simple, if you will. But is that possible, William, to do that? To be, because that is, although you say it's, are you aware of what that kindness credits is, Andrew?
Sort of, yes. And I don't agree with it. I don't agree with that or accepted for value or any other things like that.
Yeah, that.
It's
Basically, like
just going to go into prison.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
Go on, William.
To help out here, Coke upon Littleton, commentaries upon Littleton, plus Blackstone. We got to understand how this works. You got to remember that in English law, anyone that swears homage to anything, you're accepting to be its subject. So, in English law, someone that's a monk cannot get the trust. They cannot get the trust from the monarchy. They are barred from it because they've sworn to a different jurisdiction, and it's the jurisdiction of SEE, not SEA, because you're talking about the spiritual and temporal jurisdiction now. And I know fully about this, and yes, you can, just like we as fee simple can split our fee simple title. Yes, we can, but we are only splitting a fee simple title. Just like ecclesiastics, they are also splitting a fee simple title, but they're splitting it in a different way, where you have the exemptions of that faith for that jurisdiction. This goes into extreme detail in the first parts of the Institutes of the Laws of England, which is commentaries upon Littleton, as well as Coke upon Littleton, and it explains exactly how you do that, and it's done very easily. And all you have to do is just create your own religion, your own corporation, and that's you splitting the use title in two. And yes, there's allodium in equity, and there's allodium in common law. So once again, the definitions for the capacity in the jurisdiction is the issue in this topic. And once people stop ignoring the land tenure and what these jurisdictions and what they truly mean at the true foundation, where the donor grants to the monarchy and the monarchy splits a title, where the monarchy always retains the true ownership and cannot give it to anyone or anything but the one that granted it to her.
William, I'm not.
And we look at that in itself.
William,
Oh, he's talking.
Yeah.
I've not for 1 minute said that you're wrong. What I've said is that I'd like you to talk to Ken to speak to you about all this, because again, I've said before, it's above me.
Yeah, just so we can see where he thinks he stands.
I don't understand
Oh, totally.
how it works.
Yeah. Just because we're all chatting and recording, I was throwing in some extra things, so anybody that is listening can actually go and start to look for these things. Like Blackstone even talks about the Ecclesiastes. I believe it's in book 2.
Yes, but I mean, it's all very complicated. There's a lot to get through and read, and we've all got to understand it in our own way. Right?
But it's all based on the law of uses and trust. We got to remember that, right? Because by the donor granting, as soon as anybody grants anything to anyone, the next person in line can't give away certain things, no matter what, right? To profit, to make that estate profit, and to pay what he is to be paid out of it, and also to pay what that trust requires. Because anytime you give something like that to somebody else, there's an equitable duty there, right, where they have to make it perform and so on and so forth. But they also can't just give that away to anybody and keep giving it away so you can never have it back.
What Ken's found out is that he never give back land tenures while the military occupation is taking place. Never give you any of the equity, they'll never release any of the equity. All you'll be able to do is settle public liabilities with that.
Okay, but that's because now that because as soon as we get into a trustee beneficiary relationship, we know that one thing right off the hop. A trust means one thing, that you're giving it to somebody else, and when you want it back, it's yours. So you're retaining true ownership to the beneficiary. The trustee can never give that away, no matter who you are. Okay, so we need to deal with that first. The next step is that because it needs to perform, you have to be able to give some part of it away, right? To get it to perform. So you have to be able to let somebody use it. You see what I'm getting at? And it's that use that people aren't understanding, that they can only have the capacity of that use that was granted by the person that they got it from. So if the trustee only had a use and they give it to the next person only has a use. They can't give true ownership away. So when we look at this line that is a strict fact of law, that it does not change, no matter what jurisdiction you're in. So when we look at it that way, how is it possible? Because basically what you're actually stating is that somebody with only a use, that is not the true donee, right? Because the monarchy is the true trustee. So what we're saying is that somebody that's 5,000 rungs down the ladder from that trustee, right, which is a citizen, right? Because there's so many different levels between the monarchy and where the citizen is, because the citizen is at the lowest rung of all rungs in law. There's no one lower, right? Because everybody in English law descend in title below the people in natural law. So anybody in the natural capacity is superior than everybody in natural law, right? And everybody in English law would have a duty of care to that donor because they proclaimed those rights and duties to the donor, right? So how is it possible that anybody, and I mean anybody, including the monarchy herself, can't even claim true ownership? So how is it possible that anybody else down the line can not only claim true inheritance, but disinherit everybody, including themselves? Because don't forget, if you're in fee simple and you have this true inheritance sitting there where you can go and do these things, don't these people, by them doing it, if that was actually possible, wouldn't they be disinheriting themselves? So how would they be able to do that if they're actually not allowed to do that in law?
Like I said, you'll have to speak to Ken.
Right?
I want you to speak to Ken, because the reason why I'm doing this is because there's some missing parts for the UK and for Canada, and obviously you're from Canada, which I thought, well, you know, with your expertise and knowledge and with the possibility of what Ken's system can offer, it might be worth you to have a look through it.
Well, that's,
Would it not? That's all I thought. You know.
Yeah, well, I don't want to. The last thing I want to do is sound rude or anything, but I've been through all the equity and the government law and the corporate law and all that stuff, and when we get to the true foundation of law, we realize that has no force or effect whatsoever. So it goes against the entire fundamentals of the trust law.
Do you not think you speaking to Kenman and offering this information would be fair? Do you think that you know the system?
Yeah, sure. Like that's what I was saying, but
yeah, well, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, I definitely talked about this stuff. Yeah.
Your expertise in English law and be prudent to put two together, because Ken has got a lot of knowledge. And so
yeah, but that's the catch. If he's not willing to look at my stuff, then we're not going to be able to get anywhere. Because I'll look at his stuff, but he's got to look at my stuff. So.
You're presuming that he won't want to look at your stuff, is it?
Oh no, I'm not. No, I'm just saying. There's if he's not if and that goes for anybody. I'm willing to chat with anybody and go over anything with anybody, but we got to remember this is not my law, your law, or anybody else's law. This is English law. This was created by a group of people, and it's written, and it's a fact of law because it is written. You kind of see what I'm getting at? So. The only issues that we're having is that English law is so old and there's so much law. There's no one. I don't think there's anyone on this planet that's read all the law books ever written. You kind of see what I'm getting at. So I'm open to everything and anything, but it has to be able to be proven to me by actual law scholars. It can't be written by your own hand and all your own documents. And then not be willing to look. Did the sound fix? So I'm totally game to anything. I just right. Most people want to exchange. That's not what I'm about. This is all about English law. What I have found. Right.
I get it.
Right, and to debate about beliefs will just and never come out. Right?
Yeah.
So
I haven't heard that last 30 seconds of you not talking.
Oh, sorry, lad. Basically, I picked up that you said that Kenneth said that we're not going to get the fees for the donor, for being donor, because I don't know what the reason was, but if that were the case, then what have they been charging us for? They're taking fees for us using for paying the donor when they come back because they're out. So they're refusing to pay. It's something everything, really, isn't it? From all the way to because they're only charging us as they. For the use of the land, giving us the fees that we're paying and that. Of the waste, because they're not the donor, and they need to take that money to pay the donor when the donor comes back for the wastage of the land. So if they're refusing once we've made our proper claim, that would be dishonour and everything. So I don't see how they could do that. So I'd like to see what Kenneth's proof is on that, like.
Can I add to that a little bit? Because I like where you're going with that. Because let's look at it this way. If all their law is based on what's written, and that if it's a fact of law, and all this is actually written, and we have it written by their top scholars, which are the judges of their time, and they do deny it, so then aren't they denying their jurisdiction and their law that they have in their corporate equity courts if the common law created equity? Right, so how can they say that common law isn't real? And how can you kind of see what I'm getting at? They would be shooting themselves in the face and losing all their authority.
Yeah, the reason they taking no money is because they don't for the usage of their own lands, really. But because you're not here as a donor and you're being the corporate, so you've got to be charged for the wastage that you're causing of the land for the donor. What are you taking all the money for? That's going to come to the donor comes back. Because if they haven't got that money, then what have they been doing? They've dishonoured everything. They've dishonoured being the grantor and the position of the grantor.
Kev, start over. We missed all that.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Where did you start? Where did you miss from? I said if they're not, if the reason that they're charging us for the use of the lands is for the to pay for the waste when the donor comes back, because they're only holding it, aren't they? So obviously they're holding it and they're giving everyone a use of it, but as a fee, and that fee for usage is to pay the donor really, which is the true people. Once we come back and stop playing in the fiction, which is the corporation. But today, after not going to pay, I'll just bring this to, because what have they been taking the money for off all users? If that was the case, and they didn't pick the books, obviously they don't have to keep books, the conditions that they've made themselves. So all the money that government receives, really, it should be balanced to, in case anyone does come back.
That's how I've understood the law, yes.
I think Andrew's trying to talk, but he might.
Yeah. Sorry.
We can't hear you, Andrew.
I'm talking.
Do you know what I was just going to add, right? Obviously we don't know because we just need to hear from Ken first, but from my point of view, or my opinion of what I think it's going to be, it's just going to be another, system that someone's created, but it's still going to be in, a subject of fee simple. And you've got to think that these governments, they're going to accept these kind of movements if, to some extent, for ease, if not anything, but it won't necessarily give him that true freedom or true superior title. It's just going to give him, I don't know, comfort in his
jurisdiction, corporate jurisdiction.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what they've done, and they're using the one of the standing pillars that they're using is the I can never say this, but the side of things, the religion side of things, that's what they're using to stand on and create their own belief system.
Which is yet to be told, obviously. But it's more than likely going to be that.
Yeah, it can't be enough. You've got to make out, and to do it right, you've got to put in all sorts. You've got to put in as if you're your own nation. As I've seen it, there's a much advanced trust over there.
The signal's really bad, Kev.
Sorry, mate. A more advanced trust in America. Change an article, I believe, Ken's and he actually has you go to like a university study, takes 2 years, and about emulating how we set up our society, but the reason the laws are there, like dance masters, the ancestors, the schools and the colleges and stuff like that, institutions, so the only thing is you have society, like these sort of taken away. There's no minds and everybody using their rules, not corporate, like you can make rules you want on any beliefs in. he's taking it back to natural. That's how I see Williams' method, and it's not even Williams' method. Williams found the method in law through the word of the scholars in the books.
It's written.
So
That's it.
you can't argue with what the books have said, because basically you can't dig them up, and you
Do you
can't.
know the only argument that I've ever heard anyone bring to the table, and it's just simply, they're not going to honour it. What makes you think they're going to honour that or listen to that? That's all that anyone's ever brought to the table.
Well, if you don't see the shit, what have we got if you haven't got that? You're preaching a set belief.
I think it's really bad, Kev. You are, so we can't really carry on.
Yeah.
Is Kev playing on the net?
I'm not
Hello,
sure.
mate. Is that any
There.
better?
Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're losing bandwidth. I was hearing robotics for almost 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's everything you were
like
saying.
that for me at times when William's been speaking. So I thought it was just me because no one else said nothing. So just like
Got
as
up with
much
it.
could in, but I'll listen to the audio file anyway, can't I? So
Yeah. Well, there's 3 hours of that, so.
nice. Yeah, it's sorry about the bad connection there. Yeah, if they don't honour it themselves, then they're going, as William said, you're breaching agreements. So all you have got is war. So it's pull the pistols time out, isn't it?
Yeah, how's that going to stand for us?
Like law was created for the interaction between men. If we're not going to follow the law, all that's left is war.
Yeah, duel. Pistols are duel, innit?
Yeah, and doesn't that kind of conform with common law? If you're not going to abide by your agreement, you can duel.
Yeah. The only thing you've got is your word in this world. So if they and then words are written, and they were written to guide the system that we've got by the top scholars at the time. So if you, the way I see it, it's built on them bricks. If you pull them bricks out, even the law states if there's something wrong at the bottom. So if you take it from the bottom and pull it out, you've made something wrong, in my opinion.
That's right. Yeah, I agree with that.
Right, and that's where you take it from the bottom, bosh, and just undo each one of them, the little latches that they've got, the tacit agreements, because that's all they are, is tacit agreements. The only thing we've done is the errors, and the errors we were sort of indoctrinated and trained to believe that was the way to go. We didn't know the other way. Williams kindly found these books over the years. He's been looking and seeing the words and being able to understand the text of the old writers, which is beautiful in itself once you get onto it.
Justin, your mic.
They had a really good way of writing back then. I find it's got a pureness to it. Once you get back into it, like, and that's why I don't mind reading them because they're quite addictive. I've found, because of the just the purest way the Old English was written in itself. I find that our language today is absolutely terrible for interaction and talking properly and getting a full understanding. It's too wide berthed. It really is.
Well,
there's too many meanings attached to different words, which can mean absolute opposites, which is just a fuck up in itself.
And not even that, we just say words regardless of the meaning, don't we? So. And
don't forget, if you guys are ever looking for a certain area of law or something like that, and don't hesitate to give me a message and ask me if I know where it can be found, to get you guys the actual, because the hardest part is finding everything, right? So right, and I have all the books, and I've traced it from the start of English law till today, so I actually have it all, including all the statutes and everything. So as you're working through things, if you can't find the next, or if you come across something and you're looking and you want to find the law that's created the authority for that, and you can't find it, just give me a message and I can always help find and locate the information for that. So people aren't spending 6 months trying to find something. Because let's face it, the law library is like so full with all the different jurisdictions and everything else. If it wasn't for the sheer amount of books that I read, Justin, I can hear you typing.
So,
if it wasn't for the sheer amount of books that I've actually read, I honestly don't think I would have been able to put it together. Just because.
Yeah. No, it's amazing.
There's just so much, awesome. and it's So don't ever be afraid to give me a message or give me a, any way that you can get a hold of me, email, whatever. Because if I'm in the bush, email is lots of times where if I do end up getting reception, it downloads all my emails and I can get out. You know what I'm getting at? So I can help out. Yeah, so I can always help out. So don't ever be worried about messaging me and getting into a chat and things like that. Because let's face it, the more that I can help find people, get the information to people so they can understand it and share it, the faster everybody's going to realize that we all have these rights. And then when we actually do give notice to the fee simple, they'll just gladly do it. They'll do what's supposed to be done. There'll be no more confrontations. We won't have to be doing these things in front of the judges and everything else, because by the time the people get it, the judges are going to get it and they're just going to let it happen, right? So it's more that we're doing the wrong processes in the wrong way, stirring the pot and things like that. So when we actually start doing things... There's been a lot of
gurus that have false fucking lies and methods, isn't it? Rather than just looking at what the law had to say for itself, really, like William's done, which is really the logical way to do it, really, when you think about it.
It's because it can't be found, that's why.
Everyone, it's been a big fucking task and everyone's been fucking shit scared. I'll tell you the fucking truth, mate. I've got no arm,
but that's a good point, though, Kev. But the gurus, like, you got to remember, the truth is based on the knowledge that we have. So if the individual doesn't know that there's really 2 jurisdictions and all these other things out there,
that's it.
It's their truth. So until they have a different knowledge, they that's their truth. And the only issue really comes in is if we ignore these truths and things like that and just continue down that path just to keep going what we have going, even though it's wrong, right? So we need the gurus to keep doing what they're doing because they have so many people with them. But we also need them to look at these things and realize that just because they end up saying that they were wrong doesn't mean that they were lying and everything else. And so if we start realizing that truths are based on the knowledges that we have, and the line comes in is when we actually find out and don't do anything about it and keep going on with the lie, that's when we're liars. You kind of see what I'm getting at? So even all of these things have a lot more to them for the interactions between men for us to get out of this properly, so we don't have fighting and miscommunication, right? Because if we start saying that all these gurus are just liars and this and that, we're kind of shooting ourselves in the face, because we need people to look at it, and the last thing we need to do is piss people off, because then they're just not going to look at it, so we're causing more of an ignorance ourselves. If that kind of makes any sense.
Yeah.
So I think that some of the gurus are liars, not all of them, and it's just going to be pretty much boils down to is who's actually going to look at it, and when they realize that they're wrong, are they actually going to say it or not? And the ones that do are the ones that I want to be around. Because I rather somebody that's going to tell me that they did something wrong and correct it than not tell me that they did something wrong and not correct it. Right? You see what I'm getting at? So we're all kind of doing we're all living the opposite equity life, because natural law is opposite in that, because we can't We can't punish people for things like that until they actually ignore the proof and everything else, and they're just being completely ignorant, because those are the people that we don't want involved, and we don't want to follow, and we don't want to have, right? We don't want to do things with them because they just bring that drama into our life, into our society.
Yeah.
So when we can actually work on our interactions between men a little bit better, I think we're going to have a lot more success on when people find out this information, that they're actually going to want to come out and say yes. Because right now, everybody in Fee Simple, they think by you coming out and saying I was wrong, oh, you're a fucking idiot, or whatever, right? Type of thing. And
do you think Kev's going to come and claim the lands in Canada, build the society over there with us?
It would be nice if everybody who did have an interest in it and that truly wanted it, we would work together and create our own society. That'd be awesome. But freedom states that everybody can do their own and start their own society. We can, if 1 million people choose to leave tomorrow, every individual could try to start their own society. So there could be 1,000,001 different societies now, right? Because Fee Simple is pretty much taken over the whole planet. Right, like the map on Omnipotence, I haven't finished it yet, but pretty much the rest of that map is filled in too. There's only a couple of spots in the Middle East, right, that are not bound by English law. Everywhere else is. So when we look at it, municipal law is the New World Order, right? And that's why now even the movies are saying the New World Order is here. Well, that's because I think there's only 3 countries left that are not a part of municipal law. Right, so the biggest problem is municipal law, when we understand what it means and the disabilities in law that it puts onto you by accepting that agreement. People will start understanding it a little bit more and seeing that's why we have to have that deed of release, because by them bringing that municipal law was a new system that pushed us to being the third-party interloper now, right? And no longer having any authority to deal with it. And that's why these courts and everybody, even the government, can, right, when you try to call them, right, getting the messages about the Canadian Ownership Determination Act, they actually will talk to you, but only to a certain point, right? And it's once we start getting the gist of the system, we're going to end up getting a little farther with these things. So yeah, it's gonna be an interesting travel anyway. But and also to help out for the writs and proof of people getting true allodium lands and removing themselves from the English jurisdiction. On Omnipotence, there's books called Maitland's Papers. If I remember correctly, I think it's 4 volumes. The back of every every single book, or the back of the last book of the volume, has what's called a word index. You can go and use that word index that will, like if you use if you go in the back and you look up writ, and then you look for writ of decision, it'll tell you all of the pages in all the different volumes that are discussing that writ. And you'll find that Maitland goes through the court scrolls, and not only does he go over the writs, he goes over what both parties did, how they did it, and why the case turned out the way it did. So, long story short, the proof is out there. If people start looking in the right books, in the proper jurisdictions, and in the proper capacity of law. Because this is not written in any corporation book. These are common law books, and the common law is written, even though the equity judges try to tell you that it's not. Because equity common law in the equity is actually not written. They write it as they go, and they add it to the case law. So when you're as a citizen, the common law that they're talking about is a different common law, because you're in a different capacity on that land. You're not as a donor, you're as a fee simple. You're a subject, not an owner. So this means that you're in a different capacity, and it has different meanings now. So it's very important to understand how these things play out for your capacity in law. So Maitland's Papers is a great book to start. He's pretty amazing. And same with Private International Law and the Conflict of Laws. Those will both help. Private international law is pretty much law of domicile, so it explains all the different jurisdictions within the English law jurisdiction and who they apply to and why. So that'll reinforce everything that I've been saying about how a citizen actually has the civil law and he can't be a part of private international law, law of nations, or anything else unless the group gets it written into the civil law. So yeah, it's. I guess that's pretty much all I got to say for now.
Yeah. That is essentially what we wanted to find out from that Ken as well, what his capacity is in law whilst he's doing this. So that'll be good to hear.
Yeah, and also the capacity of the thing that he's doing it too, because you got to remember everything.
Yeah.
Has its own capacity, right? You see what I'm getting at? Because if that was
so
taken
whether the
by,
lands are still obviously in the agreements.
That's right. So it depends on the capacity of the land and the capacity that he took it in and the capacity on who gave him the lands, right? Because if a fee simple gave him the lands and he only has a use, right? So if the government gave him the lands, he only has a use.
And if he bought them, he only has a use.
That's right. And if he bought it, he only has a use. But
yeah.
if the monarchy combines his two titles and gives him back both his title, right? His one true title back.
Yeah.
Then he would be a sui juris.
Sui juris.
Yeah, and I would really like to see that because he may well have done that. We don't know, right? Until we actually know all those things to it, we're just all making assumptions and kind of throwing things around and right and saying, well, if it was this way, it would apply this way, and if it was that way, it would apply that way.
Get Andrew to sort it out. Just have a quick chat, 5 minutes. It'll only take that, won't it, to establish it? I can assure you.
Exactly, yeah. So, but it would be very interesting because I'd love to meet somebody who has actually done it.
Could you imagine?
I really would. So, but
you've gone. Is that just Kev that's dropped out?